guys, welcome to the video. If you're new here, my name's Curtis, and today we're going to be talking about a question that I've been getting so much of recently. So I wanted to answer this question. So it's about fragrance wearing in Japan, and if it's okay to wear fragrances in Japan. And for me, as many of you know, I've been living in Japan for about 13 years, and I've been wearing fragrance pretty much through this entire time. So I feel like I can, talk about that a little bit. And since I have been in Japan for 13 years, I do understand the culture and kind of the unwritten social rules. And so I feel like I can accurately speak about this topic. So if you're curious to hear about wearing fragrances in Japan, then let's go. All right, so if you're looking at Japan from like a beauty industry standpoint, they have to be one of the world leaders in terms of like beauty standards and like facial cleansers and makeup and things like that. But when it comes to the fragrance side of things, they're probably at the bottom of that list. Because they more so believe in like natural odors, or just kind of like no fragrance at all, essentially. However, with that said, I feel like times are slightly changing and fragrances are starting to become a bit more popular, especially niche fragrances here in Japan. I think there are more fragrance enthusiasts that are popping up, and people are really starting to, I think, appreciate fragrances a lot more. However, with that said, there are still certain social rules about fragrances that I think, if you're coming to Japan, are very important to follow, so that you can respect the culture and the way that Japanese do things here. So for me, in my experience, do I wear fragrances here in Japan? Absolutely, I do every day. But there's certain things that I do so that way I'm not kind of offending others around me. I think being a foreigner here in Japan, I try my best to blend in with the culture as much as I can. I'll speak Japanese. I'll pay my taxes like a Japanese person does. I'll go to Japanese restaurants. I'll do the things that a Japanese person does. But obviously being a foreigner here makes me kind of stand out. So I don't want to, apply all this fragrance, loud fragrance, and that kind of makes me stick out even more so than I would normally. But I do wear fragrances, but there are certain things that I do to kind of minimize, I guess, the effect that those fragrances have on others. And I do wear very strong fragrances. I mean, if you look at fragrances like Oud Maracuja, or like Falcon Leather, or Nishane Hachivat, or Beach Up Man by Amouage, I wear all of those fragrances here in Japan. But there are certain places where I wouldn't wear those fragrances. And if you're going to be in close quarters of others, I would say avoid fragrances. Or at least very, very loud, deep, rich fragrances. So like, for example, if you're going to be riding on public transportation, or if you're going to be in the workplace, or if you're going to a restaurant, especially a sushi restaurant, those places, fragrances are a no-no. Do not wear fragrances to those types of places, sushi restaurants especially. And a lot of foreigners coming to Japan, they want to get the sushi experience. So you'll find like on a lot of kind of websites for sushi restaurants, they'll specifically say no fragrances. And the reason for that is because Japanese want to appreciate the natural taste and beauty of the sushi. And if they're eating and they're catching whiffs of fragrance, it kind of ruins the experience for them. So that's the reason for that. So not just sushi restaurants, but I would say all restaurants in general, you should probably avoid fragrance, or at least very heavy fragrances. Because people definitely, food culture is huge here, and people just want to enjoy the richness and the taste of the foods here. which I can completely understand. The other one is public transportation. Yeah, I mean, if you're sitting, the train systems are really good here. You're sitting quite close to people, and sometimes for, a long period of time. So fragrance, when you're in close quarters with people, especially like on public transportation, there's nowhere for anyone to escape or to open a window. So they're kind of stuck with that smell. So you need to really be mindful of that and the others around you, or else others will definitely, try to clear away from you as best they can. And again, you don't want to be the person that's kind of, pushing people away. You want to bring them in. And then, so like for me, my way around that is typically if I'm going to be riding public transportation, what I'll do is I'll take a decant of the fragrance and then I'll get on the train, ride to my destination. After I get to my destination, then I'll go out of the station, maybe into like a public restroom or somewhere, and then I'll apply the fragrance that I'm wearing, and then I'll kind of go from there. But that's how I kind of avoid it on public transportation. Of course, to restaurants and things like that, I do my best to avoid it. If there is an option to sit on a terrace, like somewhere outside, I'll do that if I'm wearing fragrance. And that kind of is the workaround. If you're sitting anywhere outdoors, you can kind of pull that off. In the workplace is another place where you should never wear fragrance. However, I wear fragrance to my work every day. Thankfully for me, my boss is quite cool with me wearing fragrances. However, I will say, if I come into the office and there's a fragrance that is not liked by my coworkers, so basically it's myself and 3 other Japanese women in the office, the windows will quickly go up, and then I kind of know, don't wear that particular fragrance again. So, I try to be as mindful of that as possible, and I try not to wear fragrances that are too, like beast mode or too heavy or too challenging for people. However, what's challenging for this person may not be challenging for that person, so it's very subjective. But I'm trying to guess and gauge, maybe this is a little bit too much. So I kind of try to tone things down as best I can. But I have worn fragrances that have been a bit too much, so kind of, lesson learned during those times. But yeah, thankfully, my boss is okay with me wearing fragrances to work. However, in most workplaces in Japan, you should not wear fragrances, and you probably will get if you do wear a fragrance, you probably will get a lot of blowback from your boss about that. So it's just something to be mindful of. But yeah, I do feel like fragrances are becoming more popular here in Japan, and they do have a lot of really nice fragrance boutiques here, fragrance shops here. One fragrance shop that I do enjoy going to here in Japan is called The Nose Shop, and they have some really great brands like, of course, Nishane, Amouage, Goldfield & Banks, Laboratorio Olfativo, Olfactive Studio, like you name it, they pretty much have it. So I go to that fragrance boutique a lot just to do fragrance sniffing, sampling, things like that. They also have another one it's a store called Hankyu, and they have a bunch of fragrances there like Frederick Malle, Maison Francis Kurkdjian, Floris, again, you name it, they probably have it, Killian. So those are kind of 2 main fragrance shops that I go to in Japan. But yeah, fragrances are definitely, if you're buying from retail, fragrances can be quite expensive. So what's one way around that? Well, for me right now, the dollar is worth a lot more than the yen. So kind of that's one way to kind of get the discount for as long as that kind of lasts. However, in Japan recently, they definitely have hiked the prices on a lot of their fragrances, and brands have hiked the prices. So it kind of has balanced out to an extent. Another way that I kind of get fragrances here is through online discounters. So one fragrance site that I use is Max Aroma, and they send fragrance very quickly. So if I place an order, I usually get that order within 6 days. It's quick. Delivery is very fast. And in terms of like discount fragrance sites, Max Aroma is by far the best in my humble opinion, just in terms of their customer service, the fragrances that they offer, and the speed of their shipping. I mean, you place an order, next day it's out, ready to go. It's fast. Another fragrance site that I use is Lucky Scent. So it's not really a fragrance discounting site, but it's a place where you can buy niche fragrances. And again, for them too, their shipping is extremely quick, and they ship to Japan, so it's convenient for me. Yeah, in general, I would say it's okay to wear fragrances here in Japan, but if you're going to be in close quarters of people, just keep that in mind. But yeah, I do wear strong fragrances like Oud Maracuja or Beach Hut Man, but I just am very careful with the sprays. I think about, hey, where am I going to be today? Where am I going? Am I going to be outdoors? Am I going to be indoors? What kind of event is this? And I kind of really try to cater to those specific situations when I'm choosing a fragrance, and also in terms of how many sprays I'm going to be using. So yeah, there's just a lot to think about, but you know, I do, like I said before, I do feel the Japanese are slowly starting to become a bit more aware and interested in fragrances, especially niche fragrances. So, you know, but I do feel like those kind of social rules, like not wearing fragrance in restaurants, you know, on public transportation to the workplace, I feel like those are kind of locked into place, and I feel like those will never change, but there are ways around it if you're careful. And I would say, just remember, you know, if you're going to another country, whether it be Japan or somewhere else, it's always good to research about, you know, kind of the social rules and how things are looked at in the specific area that you're going to, and try your best to respect it as much as possible. So I hope you guys found the information about wearing fragrances in Japan interesting. If there's any other questions that you have, just feel free to drop them in the comment section, and I'll do my best to answer them. I hope you guys are all staying healthy and well, and I'll see you in the next video.